Hey everyone, it's Maria from the Madison Area Public Library. I'm here with a great panel of cosplayers. I'm gonna have them introduce themselves, but we're gonna be basically talking a little bit about cosplaying 101, and diversity and fandoms in the cosplaying genre industry, because basically it has become an industry now. People are being awarded and recognized for their efforts in the genre of cosplaying. So yeah, I'll have everybody take it away and introduce themselves. I'm gonna start with the Pros and Cons and Cosplay because I reached out to them first, and thank you guys for helping me put this together. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, so we're Pros and Cons Cosplay. We're cosplayers based out of the Midwest here in Mocan area. We've been cosplaying for like, I don't know, somewhere around 10 years at this point. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the stuff we do is in the competition ring. So we love cosplay contests. We do judging. We also direct a couple of contests as well. And a lot of our work we do is also in the diversity, equity, and inclusion realm. So a lot of our work also involves writing policies and helping to change rules and culture and that kind of thing.
Oh, love it. Thank you. Jay?
Hi, I'm Jay Justice. I'm from the Bronx, New York. I've been cosplaying for also about 10 years. I think there was something in the air 10 years ago. We all just like started joining in. As well as costuming. I think I've got like 100 costumes at this point. I've stopped counting. It's a lot. I have 2 storage units. Someone help me. Anyway, besides costuming, I also do editing for graphic novels and literature. I do sensitivity reading, which means I help edit books that are written by someone who doesn't have the background of the character that they're writing about, and they want to make sure that it's more authentic and more genuine, and also is not accidentally racist or prejudiced in some way. I'm one of the co-directors and co-founders of LGBTHQ, the hub for all things gay at Comic-Con, providing promotion, marketing support, and a platform for queer creators in the comic book industry and video game industry. Unfortunately, due to coronavirus, we haven't had any events this year besides KatsuCon, but hopefully I'll be able to work with them again soon. I also stream on Twitch. I do creative streams, building cosplay stuff, as well as playing PS4 games because I love Sony. And I think that might be most of it. I have like 9 jobs. I'm Jamaican. What do you want?
Our next person I have is Momo, if you want to go ahead.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm Momo Kurumi. I've been cosplaying for 14 years, going up there. Initially I started off in cosplay just buying everything, and as I got into more crafty stuff, I actually went ahead and majored in apparel design. So you kind of say majored in cosplay in a way. But most of what I've learned from building cosplay has just come from the community itself. So that's really what I love doing, is I love giving back to a community that has taught me so much, which includes about social issues like diversity and inclusion, and as well as just crafting things. A lot of what I do is based in craft, so I've gotten several craftsmanship awards, just set up contests, I've run a few here and there, and outside of that, I also like to give back in other groups, such as we recently opened a Cricut cosplay NU group, which is, for those that don't know, Cricut is a die cutting machine, but there's different brands of it, like the Brother, Silhouette, etc. Super useful. You can use it to cut out foam, heat transfer vinyls, fabrics, etc. So if you're ever curious, check out that group. It's an amazing cosplay resource. And then I also recently became an admin for the cosplay marketing group, which is all about social media and different ways to market your work and your products as far as cosplay goes. So if you're not a part of that group, highly recommend it as well.
Awesome, thank you. Okay.
Oh, okay. I forgot to say real quick, I'm also currently in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. I totally forgot this. Used to be in the Midwest as well, so I definitely made a lot of friends with people here in this group. And I'm sad that COVID happened because I was just starting to get my network up and going over here, and I was excited to meet all of the new people at the conventions and stuff, and of course they are all canceled as well.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I totally understand that one. Akakioga, right?
Yes, you did it.
Yes. Awesome.
So I am Akakioga Cosplay. I am located in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Momo used to be.
Oh.
So I've been in the kind of just nerd world since like 2006. I started cosplaying around 2014, so kind of, give or take 7 or 8 years. Just like, like most cosplayers, you kind of start out buying your costumes online and things like that. And that was kind of how I got my foot in the door, was by buying a Sasuke costume at Anime Expo the year I went for the first time. And since then, I kind of realized, I'm like, this is really fun. Like, I get to kind of express myself with clothing and with wigs and makeup and things like that. And that kind of led me to kind of being where I am now. Right now, I actually have a master's in clinical counseling and psychology. So I hope to one day to be able to incorporate both cosplay and mental health, because I know both are extremely important. Because even for me, like growing up, like sometimes like I had a lot of anxiety, like depression kind of hits people sometimes, and being able to like do something with your hands, put it on your body and like say, I'm really proud of this, can actually really, you know, encourage and motivate people to kind of get out of that funk. And that's definitely helped me a lot. So I hope one day I want to open up like a cosplay mental health thing, or do something online to where I can like encourage and motivate not only like cosplayers, but non-cosplayers to just be more creative in their lives, because I know how important creativity is for people. So that's me. I have 0 cosplay awards because I don't do competitions, but everyone keeps saying that I would be a journeyman, but it's not my cup of tea. Momo's been trying to push me to do it for a couple of years, and honestly, she was like my guru back when she lived here, and kind of really helped my creativity and helped my craftsmanship. And so maybe one day if conventions happen again, but for right now, I'm still happy just making costumes like just for me and just doing it at my pace until hopefully one day, maybe you'll see me on a stage.
Aww.
Well, I was an Akakioga fan before, but now I'm an even bigger fan because you're awesome. Like, that was so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I was telling the Pros and Cons of Cosplay, I came across their cosplaying. Monica Paprocki from Geeks A Go Go just shared their video, and I was like, she's already doing something for me, and she's always busy. That girl got something going all the time. And
Monica's crazy. I don't know how she does
Monica has like
awesome.
20. She knows how your hustle is. She has like 25 jobs too. That girl's always doing something. And I was like, you know, can I hit them up? They're like, oh, they're super cool. I'm like, she's like, hit them up, and I'm like, okay, cool. I hit them up. But how did you guys meet? Because you guys just told me like you guys can find some more people for this panel, and you guys already seem like a family. And my question for that was, a lot of kids feel when they do cosplay that they're scared because they feel like they're the only ones doing it. But clearly you guys have found community. I'll just express how you guys found each other and how you kind of came out of your shell through cosplay, because that's a big step for people to just go out there and do it for themselves and not to be judged. So I always tell the teens, if you like Naruto, go out there and start running down the convention hall as Naruto. Don't care.
That was a phase, man. We've done
that was a huge craze. Just recently, one of the teen librarians, it was making headbands for the kids. You know, simple cosplay things that they can do with things around their house. So how did you guys meet? And yeah, just a little bit on that, real quick.
I don't think I ever met any of you guys in person.
I met you once in person, Jay, at BlurCon the first year. That was like forever.
Oh my god!
And then we had a really
awkward
moment with Momo when you were at Anime St. Louis a while ago. But like we made it really uncomfortable. Yeah, sorry. But I know you were like eating and I was
I need to go back.
Please do, it would be awesome. Yeah. I think like, well, I don't know, not to like go all the way back, but when we started cosplaying, there were like 0 Black people at any of the conventions that we ever went to. So it was just kind of like, well, I guess this is just how it's going to be. Maybe there's like 1 or 2. But then 5 or 6
Where y'all at?
The middle of nowhere, Missouri, Midwest.
Yeah, Midwest.
There's like no Black. This was like 10 years. This was like 10, 15 years ago. So we had like no people of color really. But as you know, time progressed and like there's the internet and we started going to other cons, and I think that other people started moving to the area and there was just more diversity present. We were able to kind of connect. And a lot of that I think happened through the POC cosplayers group on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm one of the admins for that group somehow. And so and through there I got to like stalked Akakioga from there, and then like found Momo Kurumi, and I found Jay Justice through that as well. So like stalking all y'all through that group has been really great, and like knowing that like other people exist outside of the Midwest. That was pretty awesome.
And I think too a big part of it is social media, right? Like back in 2005 or whatever when we started cosplaying, or before that, there may have been a couple of POC or Black people in our area kind of going to conventions, but conventions weren't really a big deal here. They were super small. If there were a few people here, it was like maybe 1 or 2, and there's no way to really network. I'm sure like there would be like one brown person downstairs, and then we would be upstairs, and then we'd never like actually meet. Right. So finally, conventions got a lot bigger in our area, which is awesome. But like you mentioned, the POC cosplayer group has been awesome. Social media has been really amazing. All y'all run fantastic groups, and so getting to network that way has been super dope. So yeah,
awesome. So I'm gonna take you guys back. With a question of what was the first character you remember dressing up as, and what was follow up to that would be what was your first cosplay build? It could be a semi build. You could, so whatever you give yourself, like that was my first actual kind of build. So you guys go ahead.
First character just as like ever. Like when I was a little kid, I was a yellow Power Ranger in that terrible Ruby's Halloween store.
Yay! I had one of those.
But I was so excited to be the yellow Power Ranger, y'all. I didn't care.
Remember the swooshing gloves? The gloves that could swoosh? You remember, am I too old for that? Does anybody remember those swooshing gloves?
I do. Yes. Oh, bless.
Oh man, but yeah, and I still haven't redone that costume, but I want to at some point to make a really good, high quality version of that costume, like, and then do it side by side, looking like little buckwheat in the costume. But first thing I ever like made myself, Captain Marvel. I made my Captain Marvel costume myself. Monica Rambeau, the first female Captain Marvel from New Orleans, and was the leader of the Avengers when I was a kid. They don't sell Monica Rambeau Captain Marvel costumes in stores. They still don't to this day, and they never did. And it was like, when you cosplay, you realize that, you know, what really drives you to making a costume? That you can't get it anywhere, so you have to make it yourself. And when I tell you that I didn't know what I was doing, I hand sewed the whole thing, and and it's spandex. So I'm sitting there hand sewing spandex, trying to pull it apart and sew it back together and pull it. Yep, my damn sewing machine. Didn't know what I was doing.
Rest in peace.
And for the chest piece, she has a black 8-point star, like a starburst logo on her chest. And I was like, if I try to sew spandex onto spandex and I put it on, it's gonna look terrible. I didn't have a dress for it. I was doing. So I borrowed somebody's college textbook and put inside the costume, and then I painted a star on it because I was thinking, okay, the paint won't leak through to mess with the back of the costume. I got this. That textbook is toast, man.
Those for like $800.
Hey, it was a thick book. I wasn't thinking. Thank God they already graduated. They never looked for that book again. It's fine. But yeah, so and it wasn't fabric paint. It was like regular house paint. Oh. So it looked real good. It was dark. It was dark paint. It's soaked in there. To this day, it ain't washed out.
I want a panel just on you talking about making that costume.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was so bad, y'all. It was so bad. And the gloves, I was so proud of the gloves. So you know they have those rave gloves that have like lights in them. Mm-hmm. I had a pair of those underneath a pair of regular white fabric gloves, so I could do sparkle fingers.
Yeah, sparkle.
I was so proud. And the best part was that it's all white on white. The camera flash hides any mistakes you made. As long as you're using white thread, that costume looked good. Despite all of the mistakes I've been making, and despite like being terrified, I hand sewed an armpit. I didn't make a real sleeve. I hand sewed like a tee, and like I'm waving my arm around, going, "What am I gonna do if this seam rips and this whole wing just falls out?" There's a picture of me on a stage swinging around like nobody's business, without like that fear that you have that it's gonna fall apart just leaves your body, and you're just having fun. And I wasn't competing in that costume. It's just a photo op. So there was no pressure. And people I met that year, this is like, 10 years ago, I'm friends with them now. Like, it was a really great first year of cosplaying and feeling like that it doesn't matter if your costumes are perfect. You're still going to make friends. You're still going to have a good time. And I don't think I knew almost anybody at that convention, really. Because it was New York Comic Con. And I had like some nerdy friends, but they weren't like, oh, you going to go hang out with other nerds in public? Like we can play Yu-Gi-Oh like in the back alley where nobody can see us, but you're gonna be out there with cameras? Like you might be on TV or something. Yeah, with the people.
Just picturing you like trading Yu-Gi-Oh cards in a brown paper bag behind the convention.
Literally.
Back alley. I love
Not gonna lie, that was me in elementary school.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Where are you going? Bible study? Meanwhile, you're going to Comic Con.
I think Akakioga and I have the same first cosplay, don't we?
What?
I think so. Wait, what was Wait, I have to remember.
Was your first one Sasuke?
Yeah, so it was Sasuke.
Yeah.
So we're
Same hat? Same hat?
It was so bad.
There are no pictures of it. Like literally,
No, they don't exist.
they don't exist. Well, to put it one way, we were like backing out. So the con I went to was Sugoi Con near Cincinnati. It doesn't exist anymore. R.I.P. And we were like backing out of the driveway, and I'm like telling my mom, because like I was in high school, I was like, Mom, wait, I forgot the camera. And she literally was so embarrassed of me and my friend that she didn't let us get out of the car in our own driveway for me to go get the camera. So there's just no pictures. There's just none.
Oh my
It's
god.
like, get in the car.
Just stay in the car. Just don't let the neighbors see it. My hairdo for Sasuke was super awesome. It's basically just this. Like, yeah.
I mean,
So
it's,
edgy.
It works.
it's effective.
It works.
There's a nice
Yeah.
ponytail Sasuke going on with brown hair. It was like super legit. The cosplay was like sized for men, so I got the smallest size possible, and it still looked like I was wearing my brother's clothes or something.
Oh.
I feel like
No,
we're just like the sisterhood of the traveling Sasuke costume. Everyone had that costume.
I know. I
It was
traded.
shiny on the inside, and it was just like itchy. It was just
I traded that cosplay for a wig, actually. So maybe it is out there somewhere. I traded it for a Simone wig from Gurren Lagann, which brings me to the actual first cosplay that I made completely from scratch, which was Yoko from Gurren Lagann.
Okay.
No idea what I was doing the whole time. I literally was like building a giant, like 4-foot long rifle in the basement of my dormitory. I went on like 2 different summers to work for that dormitory later, like during the summers, to make some extra money. As far as I know, the spray paint is still there. I had newspapers. I had
Oh my
newspapers,
God.
but it didn't help.
It never does. You have to. That always flies away when you're trying to spray. You're just like, well, I guess that's just on the carpet now. Or,
right. They need to make like a cement colored spray paint so you could just spray paint over
I'm
it.
not gonna lie,
Oh,
I did
They
that.
have that. I have bought that and used that to get my deposit back.
Oh no. Yes.
Don't listen to us young cosplayers.
Oh Lord, no.
Plastic backdrops in a
I
well-ventilated area.
taped down garbage bags over the whole balcony. And of course, when I peeled it off, there's a whole blue line around the whole thing. I'm like,
Right. It kind of just goes around and you're like,
yep,
you're sick.
yep. And the wind blew the paint. So I had to go out to Home Depot, get the cement color spray paint, and then spray it over in the blue.
That's smart.
Smart.
I
though.
should have done that in my last apartment. I definitely lost
$7? $800 deposit. There you go.
You're right.
We did
You're right.
the grass to our library with the kids outside spray painting art. And then I was like, I had to go run and find our maintenance guy. Like, full disclosure, I'm not at the same library. So yeah, I spray painted the grass. I ran and got him. I'm like, can you just cut the grass super short, please? Because the rainbow that is on the back of the parking lot is going to get me fired. So he hurried up and ran out there with the lawnmower, cut it
First of all,
Erase the evidence.
and
God
then
bless
big
him.
friends
top of
with the
that-
maintenance crew. to
No,
save
and
your
then-
life.
Some green spray paint.
I didn't have green. That's the only thing I didn't have. Didn't have green. And then the grass ended up burning the next day because it was so short. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Stories of the spray paint. I totally understand. Akakioga, follow up to, since you guys had the same Sasuke, what was the first build you had?
Well, kind of even going back to my Sasuke costume, I bought it at Anime Expo on day 1, and I wore it to the convention on day 2. And my hair was braided, by the way. So I had I was doing the whole natural hair cosplay thing before I even knew it was a thing. And I did the exact same thing she did. I put my hair up in a ponytail in my braids, and I just rocked it. I'm just walking out like trying to be as edgy as possible while with my mom. Like my mom was with me too, and that was probably the best part because I ended up getting her into cosplay later. So she ended up cosplaying Tsunade later, and it was like the best thing ever.
That is so cool.
Like my mom supports me, and I'm like, do the thing, join me because I'm alone and I don't have any friends in this.
Oh.
Understand my fandom, please.
No, she does. She used to watch anime with me all the time, so it made it
That's
really
awesome.
easy for me to just be like, do this.
That's
But
so
my first build, I guess you would say, was super easy. It was Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service.
Oh, I can't stand you. That's an easy one.
It
It
counts.
was super
That
easy
counts.
because like
It does count, yeah.
like no one really taught me how to sew. My mom kind of was like,
Yeah,
okay,
so
well,
hard.
I can like show you how to sew in a straight line, but for all the really complicated stuff, you're gonna have to figure it out. And so I'm like, okay, well, I bought the dress pattern from Joann's. I bought like 3 brooms from Home Depot. And I butchered 2 of them and then wrapped them in for one giant like broom, and it ended up actually looking really good. And the dress was easy, so fortunately like no casualties were had. And then like I made the bow, and somebody bought me Gigi so I could have him on my shoulder, and that was like the easiest costume I had ever made. And looking back on it, I'm just like, I could have gone so much harder than this. But of course, like, you know, 2020 me is like, I don't need patterns anymore. I can just BS this on my floor. Like,
Yes, Monster Hunter armor.
oh my god,
Oh God.
Your Monster
don't
Hunter
talk to me
costume
about
is
that
amazing.
armor. But yeah,
I'm still trying to get into armor.
Okay, see, I will teach you. It's so easy. See, I think of like sewing, and I'm like, but I'll do it. But armor's like,
Wait. Next question. Let pros and cons go. Let's.
Oh, no
Yes.
kidding. Our first costume was a really busted version of Kaoru Kamiya from Rurouni Kenshin. We both went.
Oh
as
my
Kaoru
God.
Kamiya. Like, let me just paint this picture for you. So many summers before that, we went to Epcot Center in like in Disney World and bought these like, you know, polyester yukata from like the Japanese Epcot Center. So had that, wrapped a pillowcase around my body and some like
braiding hair.
yaki braiding hair, like put all our hair up in a little bun and then have like a little ponytail of like yaki braiding hair hanging down, like the tube socks and flip flops. Like it was this.
It was hot.
It was a presentation.
It was
So it really was not cute, and that was our first.
probably kind of problematic.
Yeah, it was definitely some problems with that. And thank God it was like during the era of like winded cameras, so there's no digital evidence of that. It was just real busted. And that was our first con, and we had heard that you have to dress in cosplay to go to conventions, otherwise you will look weird. So, which obviously isn't the case, but we had no idea, so we were just like, I guess gotta throw something together. So that was our first one. It was really busted. I'm so glad there's no picture of it. It was just a thing.
And I think our first build was that Final Fantasy 12?
It was.
Yeah. So Final Fantasy 12.
Why walk first? You gotta
When
run.
you
gotta
be
run.
full
I'm
apricot in
okay.
space.
Right.
So we did Balthier and Ash from Final Fantasy 12, and so it's both armor and sewing. I never made a corset before, so that was my first sewing project. It was
Wow.
Bro, you crazy.
It was
Yeah.
magic.
I think that was also our first contest.
It
like,
was
literally
and our first award.
and my first award. Yeah. So
Aww.
now we enter together, but we used to enter separately. And Balthier, if you don't know the character from Final Fantasy 12, has like this really stupid vest that's just got all this applique on top. And at the time, I was like, I couldn't, I could sew kinda, like I know how to read a pattern, but like I was not like a seamstress. And I don't really consider myself like that. But anyway, at the time, I had no idea. But I just hot glued some EVA foam, like craft foam, spray painted, and then hot glued that to the chest piece. And I had these, like really ugly cotton slacks, and I hot glued some felts onto those, and used some puff paint.
Your Crocs.
And like, okay, so Balthier has these like really ugly backless shoes, and so my genius brain was like, I'm gonna get a pair of pink Crocs and spray paint those black. So you know exactly what happens when you spray paint shoes. It just cracks off.
Yeah.
And our first con was like in the middle of Kansas somewhere. Or that con was like in the middle of Kansas somewhere. So I was just like cracking. They were cracking as I was walking, and it's like all these like pieces of black paint just falling off my shoes as I'm walking. Like it was hot pink because I didn't think to buy black ones at the time. So it was just a real treasure.
I really enjoyed it. Maybe it was not. Because we also that year, I was dressed as Ash with the voice actor as Kari Waldron, and she was there as one of the guests, so it kind of worked out really great. I got to meet her. She signed my busted sword. It was great. So I'll remake that one day with proper boning in the corset. I saw the boning in the pattern. I was like, I don't know what that is. Next.
Balthier like holds a special place in my heart because I've remade that costume 3 times since then, and that was the second. Anyway, the first time we became judges, I remade it like with proper techniques, and I like sewed the applique on and like all this stuff. And that was the first time we judged. So the first day that we got to judge, I went back to the first costume that I'd won an award in, like as a
it's a little tribute to that. So
Aww.
With no hot glue this time.
no hot glue that time. Not hot glue anything. Did it the right way. Well, not right way. A way, a different way, a better way.
Akakioga,
A way with more longevity.
There we go.
you mentioned doing foam builds, so we'll go back to that. What is your guys' specialties? What do you guys are your strongest skills in cosplay?
Definitely any like EVA foam Warbler builds are like my favorite. I don't know what it is about it, but for some reason my brain is able to take a 2D thing and then make it into 3D for some reason. But yeah, I would definitely say armor builds are my favorite. I've done more armor builds than I've done like sewing builds, which is, it kind of just comes along with the territory now. So I've done like Monster Hunter, World of Warcraft, like everything that's just like the crazy. You're just like, how do you do this in real life? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just gonna make it in a month for Katsu, and we'll see what happens. And so,
I wish I had that confidence.
hey man, I don't know where it came from. It's just more like, hey, you're gonna be in a cosplay group with some well-known people. You better make it look good. And I'm like, okay.
You're like, I can do this.
But secretly, I'm like, I don't know if I could do this.
Aw.
But that's how you find out you can do it, by doing it.
Yeah.
It's true. Like every time, like I feel like when it comes to either like sewing, armor making, or whatever, like you literally just have to go balls to the wall with it and then just try it, or else like you will never know if you can't do it. And so that's kind of just been my motivation to keep making bigger and bigger armor builds. It's like, hey, I was able to make this and I thought I couldn't do it, so I'm gonna do this, and you know, think I can't do it, but I know that I can because of the one that I made previously. That definitely does
Sounds
help.
like time travel.
Just figured it out.
Right? It's just like, hey, you will be able to make this. Don't worry about it. Just do it. It'll be fine.
You got this. You got this. Jay?
I feel like I'm a jack of all trades because I've done probably an equal amount of like spandex and like armor and like foam and all this stuff. But people say I'm mostly known for body painting because I look back and I'm like, oh God, I've done a lot of body paint costumes. And I didn't actually have a compressor until like this year, and I still haven't even used the compressor. So all of my full body paint is just me and a 1-inch sponge, or slightly wider if I'm like in a hurry, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I feel like because of the diversity of the characters that I like and the things that I'm into, because I have like way too many fandoms, you kind of just learn a new thing with each project, and then you get bigger and bigger and bigger until people ask you for a focus. And I'm like, I'm that kid who kept taking new classes every semester and never picked a major. That's
Oops.
Undeclared.
like, I'm never gonna graduate. I'm just gonna keep learning stuff for fun. Every parent's nightmare. Like, do something with your life. Like, no, I'm gonna learn something different now. Sorry.
No, I tell people
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I'm a serial learner. So
Yeah.
I just pick everything. So I'm just like, it's compulsive too. Like one day I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna really get into this, and it's like I just, like you said, balls to the wall, get into it. Why am I doing this to myself? Monica's been trying to get me into cosplaying more, but I'm just like, I feel like an obsession will come over me, and then I know to do it.
It will.
Go fight it. Go fight it.
I've only done very small passive things, but I'm not like, I can sew, but I don't know if I can sew a whole costume. I got to work on things. But Momo, your specialty?
Definitely it would be sewing and patterning. Specifically, patterning and pattern drafting is definitely what I enjoy most in the process, and that's also what my full-time job is. So I am actually a pattern designer full-time, and on the side I'm trying to start my Etsy patterns, which have been a long time coming because I want to offer them in a large size range, and that's kind of been my pet project for this month, is to try and offer the Sailor Moon leotards that I have in a variety of sizes. So at least like 10 main sizes, and then I'm going to offer them in like tall, short, because it's amazing the complexity of like what goes into patterning. Like, it's not just like, oh, just make it bigger. Like, people have so many different proportions, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to making stuff. When you get used to making things for yourself, it's really easy to anticipate what a shape will look like, but once you start patterning for other people, it becomes intensely challenging. When I tell you that we have been working on perfecting a corset for the store that I work for right now, I'm not even kidding when I say, like, we've been working on it for like 2 or 3 years. Like, a lot goes into it. So that's kind of what I'm about, though. I love just figuring out these problems and being like, how can we get this to support this thing, etc. So that's definitely my specialty, but I don't get too heavy into like sewing embellishments and stuff because I tend to have that chronic problem where I start a project and then I get bored of it and I start another project and I get bored of that one. So I have about 60 of those.
So say we all.
Isn't my Sailor Saturn still in your closet that I've been working on?
I still have it.
Aww.
Yes, I still have it. It's living in my closet downstairs.
There's literally only needs it like what 4 snaps or something and it's done. Like I don't
I mean, like a hip roll and 4 snaps and you would be done.
Aw.
Okay, let's all do a Sailor Moon group. Let's do it.
Yes. Done.
When you said Sailor Moon cuckoos, Momo, if you, I mean, you probably already have this, but if you offer a long torso one, you're gonna save lives.
Please,
Yes.
my God.
I totally understand the struggle because I'm short torsoed, and I know that obviously like there's a lot of people that are long torsoed because they keep buying things on accident that are long torsoed. So I'm like, well, clearly there is a market for this size out there.
I will buy them.
Yay!
Pros and cons, yours embellished, the things you specialize in?
I think we're more like jacks of all trades too. Personally, I get very bored of doing the same thing over and over again. Lately, I've been really into wig styling, so that's something I really enjoy doing. We've sewn a couple ball gowns. I've made a couple suits of armor, so just kind of like all the things, honestly.
What's really been like interesting, I guess, about COVID. I don't even want to say good because it's kind of been a mass disaster with this situation, but at the very least, I've had time to play with different things, and so I've been getting into resin casting lately, which is really fun, and smooth cast products as well. So super great. They're a little pricey, but they are fun to work with and easy to work with. And I don't know, whenever you get to play with a new toy, it's fun. You know, I learned smocking with our Sakiso cosplays and resin casting with a few Sakiso cosplays, playing with like the new features on my machine. Because sometimes when you're, you know, like you're just have a schedule going for cosplays, you're like, okay, well, like I know how to do this, so I kind of get into a rhythm. But now that there's no conventions or real reason to do anything, you have all this time to kind of play with new toys. So that's been fun. Been getting new reasons to cuss out my sewing machine.
That's true. That's true. Every other costume got a custom sewing machine and show it its place. Yeah. But I feel like, we do just, I don't know, sometimes I like to learn new techniques, so my favorite thing for a costume is to always research different things to make it look cool and crazy and weird. And I particularly like projects that make you have to do things that are like defy physics or like gravity or something sensible, like transportation or getting through doorways. I don't know why we seem to like those kinds of costumes, but so whenever we can like stretch that brain muscle, I really enjoy those types of costumes.
That's cool. So yeah, getting into some of the characters you guys have either, you know, cosplayed as or you feel connected to. Me being a Latin girl, I can relate to a lot of characters through Final Fantasy, through, you know, anime and things like that. But you know, it's something when you see representation on a screen that makes you feel heard. Especially like with Star Wars, Pedro Pascal, Diego Luna, you know, like, you know, Hispanics in space, you know, that's how I feel. You know?
Alderaan is a Latino, like a whole Latino planet, okay? It's canon. It's
like,
canon.
Everybody was so mad when his mask came off in Mandalorian. I was like, show your face!
Mad
Show
about
a brown
what?
face. I need you to just show the brown face for a second, just so I could be like, it's there, thank you. You know, but growing up, you know, like my first costume I dressed up as was Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. Yeah, that was my first costume.
Nice.
It had the little mask on. It was freezing cold in Chicago, so I had like layers of sweaters underneath her outfit. So I just looked like a balloon with little stitches walking around. But you know, like you don't usually, and I don't want to say the words, like you don't see the color and stuff like that, but as you get older, you start saying, you know, I really wish there was representation in Marvel or in DC or, you know, in video games. Did you guys connect to a character before you connected on that deeper level, I should say? Like for me, like I said, Catwoman, but seeing Star Wars, like all I want to do now is build a Mandalorian build, you know, like, you know, but that's how I feel, you know, like, and I'm waiting for things for me to see like the first real loud representation of like a Puerto Rican woman in Marvel.
When I was a kid, we all knew Wonder Woman was Latina because she is. Linda Carter.
Yeah, you know, like, you know, but then like you get things like Hamilton and I'm just like, oh, I could cosplay that because they made it so much flavor, but would I really want to? Like, that's a lot of work. I don't think I can do that sewing.
It's not the work that scares me. I ain't cosplaying no slave owners. Sorry.
Like if we we were gonna,
Yikes.
my only thing to Lynn on that is if we were gonna push boundaries and have minorities, he could have had women play some of the characters too. If you were gonna do representation that way, I'm like, could have had some of those women play like John Adams or something. I'm just saying. Like, I mean, I
Outside performers.
you know, like.
Yeah, that's
But yeah, so that's my question to you guys. What was the first character that you guys connected to? And as a minority, what was the second character you connected to because you felt proud and you felt heard and you wanted to represent that character and just reenact that cosplay and go out there and do it? Anybody?
I'd say most of our fandoms are in like Japanese media, so video games and anime characters, mostly video games. So there's not always a whole lot of representation. I think there's a lot to unpack with what that means. I'm not always the first person to like say, you know what, Japan, start putting Black people in your video games when they have other marginalized groups in Japan that also have representation.
Yes.
Like, Black people, I mean, like, you know, Black Americans are not in Japan, so I'm not necessarily expecting to see Black people in Japanese video games. So I guess we never really worried about it, but think about kind of our regional location is in predominantly white areas, so I'm just used to not being represented. So, but I will say, as we got older and seeing more representation available, like that, it kind of was a weird feeling. You're like, my God, like my life could have been so much easier, or I would have felt a little bit more connected if this had been around when we were kids growing up. Yes. So I think our first maybe Black character that we really felt connection to was the Dora Milaje.
That was amazing.
The amount of pride we had rolling up to C2E2 was the first comic calling word too, and the amount of pride that I just felt being able to represent that character was just like through the roof. And
the patterning we used was from
Nivedna Productions, and she made the print for the Three Spoonflowers. She designed the print for these costumes, and they were absolutely gorgeous. And so getting to rep that, and we saw her at the con, so that was extra awesome.
Oh.
And I think usually when we go to conventions, we don't expect there to be I just never expect to notice. But at C2E2, the amount of response, because we were kind of like a little group, we had like a box, we were there, Papa Bear cosplay, and
Papa Bear is so nice.
You guys had an amazing group. It was no little group. That group was great.
It was so legit.
It was amazing, and like rolling in with that whole crew, it was just like, it just felt like, my God, like there are people that look like us and we can be together celebrating this fandom. Like I just never felt that before. This was a couple of years ago, so it wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah. The Black Women's Expo also happened to be that weekend.
So funny. We didn't know.
We didn't know, right? And we get there and we were caught into maybe 2 hours of picture traps.
We
like,
couldn't move.
Yeah, because of both the Black Women's Expo and the movie had just come out, and I mean I was holding babies. I mean,
it was so funny. It was great.
I mean, there's a little baby T'Challa, and I was like, I don't hold children ever, but like I'm gonna make it happen for you, so you get this picture when you're older and can like
look at both of us going like this.
It was so cute.
Like crying, like, oh my God, it was really awesome. And so I think whenever we can incorporate some of that even in the characters that we do now, when we were doing our Thundercats cosplays, for example, I was really excited about, we made yarn wigs, but there was texture in there, so like kind of.
It looks so good. You guys did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Getting to pay a little homage to like Black hair texture. We did Snow White and Evil Queen Zakizo and
for a costume
contest, and one of our running jokes was that I'm Black,
so
as
not
Snow
white.
Not white. Yeah, so that was fun. So yeah, I think that's how.
I definitely want to play off of you guys because I also used Nevaeh's fabric for my Shuri costume.
Yeah.
So, but going back, the first character like that I originally cosplayed that was Black that kind of really inspired me was Static Shock. He was like that cartoon that like most 99.9% of Black households, if you were a nerd, you were up watching Kids WB on a Saturday morning. Yep. The homie was there, and but he was kind of like the very few, if not the only, like head runner character that was Black for a TV show. And like watching him every Saturday, I'm like, this was amazing. The show talked about a lot of like issues with being Black and like having like white friends and their white friends' families being racist and like all that other kind of stuff. So that show was like amazing, way before its time, and it need to bring it back. And when I cosplayed Static, I actually used my natural hair, so I basically just let my hair go out in an afro. And I'm like, I don't know how to dread, so I'm gonna do basically like the female version of just let it loose, And that was the first time that I ever truly embraced my natural hair, because I was always teased about my hair as a kid, because I went to a predominantly white school and they didn't know what Black people's hair looked like. And that was kind of the first time I really embraced him, like, hey, he's black, I'm black, why not, you know? And a lot of people still know me for that costume, and that costume is almost has a legacy at this point, and I hope to bring it back one day because I really miss cosplaying him. And then the next one was Shuri from Black Panther, because I shit you not, when I watched that movie, I cried at least a couple times watching it. Just like the amount of culture, the colorfulness, it was beautiful, and it was so well done that like I feel like I wanted to go to Wakanda. Like I wish that this place existed, because it meant so much to us to see our culture as beautiful on the big screen, and like not just like stereotyped and not just being treated like, oh, you know, like they're just black people. Like, no, there's like a culture within this movie that I want to be a part of. And so a year after the movie came out, I decided I wanted to cosplay Shuri because Cutie Pie Sensei said, hey, we're doing a Women of Marvel group. Would you like to be Shuri? And I said, sure, and then but I had no idea how I was gonna make that costume. I patterned the entire bodysuit from scratch. I think it consisted of at least 48 different panels of like different textures of all the body parts. And then like I had the gauntlets 3D printed. I found a braided wig on Amazon that I had to kind of make it work because I don't have a lot of hair to braid and I was too lazy to do extensions, so I made it work. And when I went to, we took it to Dragon Con, and all of the kids who found us would just like run over to us, especially like the black kids. There was like a 6-year-old who was cosplaying Black Panther, and he ran over to me and he said, sister, and I almost lost it. It was so cute just to think that like these kids are like seeing us as adults, and they're just like, you look like me and you're also doing this thing, while also like being able to like encourage them to like, hey, you can do this, you know? And getting like, oh my god, every time I do anything from Disney, the kids are incredible, but like seeing the black kids cosplaying from like Black Panther, just like my heart was like fluttering all weekend. Yeah, like I had like an apple in my throat the whole weekend, just crying because these kids just come up to me just like, oh my god, we need photos, we need pictures, and I'm just like, this is why I did it. Not just for, you know, just for me, but that representation is so important. And that costume still means a lot to me, and I need to wear it again because I've only worn it once, and I put too many hours into that costume to only wear it once. So I will wear it again, hopefully one day.
You better. I have 2 versions of Nakia. Wait, no, 3 versions of Nakia. So let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Ready? No, it's in the closet. Let's go.
Jay or Momo, anybody want to take it, Jay?
I have so many different ones because of all the times I've done a costume where the character either was black and it was a huge thing because, oh my god, you're doing this character, or they weren't, and people were like, I gotta like pick one, pick a story. I think that so Batgirl. Everyone knows Batgirl's got red hair and like, you know, the original Batgirl or whatever. If you're a real DC head, you'll know that there's like 5 different Batgirls, and one of them was black. But of course, you don't expect everyone to know that. But I did a volunteer thing for Kids Day at the Department of Immigration. So basically, a lot of kids are becoming Americans today, and this is kind of a big deal. And their families are there with them, and it's a great thing. They had, I want to say, a Batman, a Red Hood. I can't believe how many little kids knew who Red Hood was. Like, really? Like, he was a violent, scary character at the time. This is years ago, so he wasn't like as
prominent
as he is now. Yeah, but and we were supposed to have a Power Ranger, but she was sick. And then one dude came as Space Ghost, and I was like, no one's gonna know who you are, man.
Oh my god.
The old people loved it. The kids were like, who is that? And so I was Batgirl, and my Batgirl has, you know, the black cowl and like the yellow bat symbol, yellow belt, and like a, you know, black and yellow cape. And I have my big curly afro hair coming out of this cowl. And all the little black and brown kids were super hyped to see me. They were just like, oh my gosh, Batgirl looks like me. Can I touch your hand? Like, yes, we can. It's so cute. And one girl had me sign an autograph, and I was like, I have not practiced signing Batgirl. I'm going to mess this up. So it's her little journal that she brought from Dominican Republic. I'm like, oh god, I'm going to mess it up. So cute. And then there's this little white boy who's looking at me, and he's got that look of, that kids give you, were like, is that the real Santa Claus? Like that look?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And he was like, and you know, he's at least 8, so he knows he can't be racist, but he also like wants to like pop the bubble here because everybody's too happy. So he says, I thought Batgirl was supposed to have red hair. And you could see all the little black and brown kids kind of play like, oh, he's ruining it. Because they were having fun. Like that, I was giving them my kids safe batarang that they can't hurt themselves with to play with and everything. And these kids were in it. So I said to him, you know something? The cool thing about Batman is that he thinks that anybody can be a hero, no matter what you look like, as long as you're a good person. And he was like, that's true. And so before you know it, we're all hanging out. I'm telling him about the video game where there's like 4 different Batgirls you can play as. I mean, like you kind of have to help kids see past the fact that someone is different from you and realize, hey, I don't have to ruin this person's fun because they're not the same color as me. I can just, like, when you said they didn't know that what black people's characters look like, it's not an ignorance thing. It's definitely something that they know that you're different, and it's not just not knowing, it's knowing someone's different and knowing that I should push them or that I should hurt them or that I should tell them that they're different. I should make them feel bad for being different. That's the difference. So it's not ignorance. It's definitely a learned behavior, and you have to help them unlearn it. And that's what I did for years. As I was a tutor, I did like all kinds of volunteer work, and I feel like it's hard to get through people when they're adults. Sometimes when they're kids, it's a little bit easier because they're more open to understanding and they want to be friends. They hear a lot of things at home. It makes them, kind of prejudiced, and they kind of have to unlearn that. But I'm happy for, at least for that day, he realized, hey, I don't have to necessarily make someone feel bad for being different. I can just have fun with them and not be a jerk. So
yeah, we had a black Elsa at our library, and all the kids like totally, they were like in it. They were just like, yes, Elsa. They didn't see nothing, because it was Elsa. One kid, because there's always the one kid. She was like, Elsa looks different. And he just wasn't trying to say, and it's always a boy. I don't know why boys are always a little vocal. Girls are just like, Elsa, like, and the boys are just like, but it was story time, and they're singing Let It Go and stuff like that. So I get it. Maybe he wasn't feeling it that day. It's probably the 300th time he heard it. But he was like, Elsa looks different. Why is her hair now blonde? And then so like, the other little girls were looking at him like, you're ruining the song, like they had just like look, right?
I love how kids know how to collect people like early on.
So they were about to snatch him, so they were just like, so they were about to snatch him. And one of the girls like, well, Elsa's a princess. She can look however she wants to look because she has powers. And I was like, oh, I had to say nothing. I walked away. I was so happy that there's these kids that can say these things. Like, this is what comes to their mind. But it also goes back to what I said about characters. And I think that these characters have these powers and these personas, and they didn't see the difference in the person. They just thought she was beautiful. She had a great voice, and they were just like, let it go. They were doing their thing.
They weren't even worried about it.
Yeah. Huh?
They weren't even worried about it. They're just
no.
Like, that one kid. Someone's got to point it out.
There's always that one kid. Momo?
I mean, if they're question, sorry.
No, go ahead.
If they're not going to question why Rapunzel's hair is a different color in every different sequel to the movie, when you see it at the park, like, just enjoy it. Like,
point blank period.
Sure. In a very similar way, speaking of Disney, when I was growing up, obviously we didn't have characters like Tiana or Princess Elena, so I just kind of had to relate to like the next most brown characters. So for me, like, that representation came with like Princess Jasmine, who's still one of my top favorites.
Yes.
Pocahontas, which retrospectively looking back now does have some problematic themes, but like, I am 1/4 native and I used to have like really long dark hair. So again, looking back on it, it probably wasn't necessarily the best compliment, but people would like jokingly call me Pocahontas because I looked like her. So yeah, it's one of those things that as we have grown and learned, we're just like, ooh, let's not use that term. But back then they did mean it as a compliment. So it was just a lot of like, we didn't know better at that time. And Esmeralda, I love her so much. She is just like, she's still my crush. I love her. And then additionally Belle, just because she had brown hair and I had brown hair, and it was
she's a nerd.
Yes, she's a nerd. I would like legit tell people my favorite color was yellow just because of her dress. It wasn't ever yellow, but I would just say that. So growing up, like, I longed for this representation, and that's why I kind of latched on to characters that were like not quite representative of me, but like the next best thing. And so it's amazing now that there are more diversity of characters, and I still want there to be even more and more, like, not just Tiana, not just Elena, not just Mulan. Like, I want everyone to have like a plethora of characters that they can relate to, because not every little girl likes Tiana because she spends most of her movie as a frog.
Also,
And that's valid.
she's the only one who has a job.
Right.
True.
We have some rich black people.
She's the only princess who gotta pay taxes.
Oh, that is a valid point.
So sad too. Like, why are all the black characters in Disney have to turn into something too? Why can't they just
Like
be
an animal
black
or
for like the whole movie?
yes.
It's got a
So
really horrible situations. The same thing with like Esmeralda and Jasmine. Like, well, Jasmine was the princess, but she had a lot going on too. So yeah.
it says a lot when like. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say it says a lot when like all the characters that I like related to because it looked the most like me were like, oh, there's invaders or there's people trying to commit genocide or there's like colonizers like Princess Kita. And I'm just like, so it's nice to see more stories come up now with characters like, if you guys haven't seen Michiko Tohachin, really good anime, such good like black and brown representation. Michiko is one of the first anime characters that I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's brown, she's Latina, like this is amazing. And then I was introduced by a friend to America Chavez, who's from Marvel Comics. Love her so much. She's got the LGBT representation going on. Brown, Latina, her comic is so full of representation. And then we've got like Coco now, which is like one of my favorite movies from Pixar. If you guys haven't seen it, highly recommend it. I still have family that's like in like San Antonio and Mexico, and it's been a long time since I visited them, but just like that movie makes me feel so at home. And I cry every time I watch it because like both of my grandparents have passed away. So it's like such a very like meaningful movie to me. And if you haven't seen it, just like prepare the tissues because it's so beautiful but so good.
Yeah, that the movie is definitely we'll bring to the next question. Yeah, when I saw Pixar did Coco, and it wasn't just an animated movie, but it showcased a holiday that people thought were perceiving it as something different, you know, with the skulls and dead. They thought it was something that was more morbid, but in reality it's a celebration of life and memories, and to think back on good times and be happy, and to just do a, you know, just have presentations of your family, because they get forgotten, because how often do we forget the ones who passed? But on that special day you tell stories about the ones who passed. So yeah, my questions to you guys is, what other fandoms or genres of movies what do you guys are into that you wish to see more inclusion? I wish to see more inclusion animated. I know the animated short, what was it, Hair, the one with the dad and the little girl. That was
it was so good. It was so
going to be turned into a show. So I'm
yes,
looking.
it is.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing that, because I thought that was one of the cutest, coolest thing. Not only did it hit on minorities, but it had to do with fathers too, taking a role that is never really looked upon from them, you know, especially with the type of hairstyle little girls have. I mean, any little girl doesn't want their dad touching their hair half the time, you know? So like, you know, just having that in itself was a message, but it also showed strong families, core values, things like that. And it's just having the creators being African-American was just, it was so good, you know, and being recognized on the platform they did at, what was it, the academies? Yes, the academies that they had. But I would like, I go back to Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars girl, but I'm also a big gamer. I would like to see more representation, like in The Last of Us, things like that, that I've played. I would just like to see characters. Just throw in a Hispanic character. You can do that in those, you know, and even like Red Dead Redemption, you didn't see that many Native Americans. You're in cowboy era. Like, how did you not showcase, like, you know, something? I mean, I know
all the cowboys were brown. All the cowboys were brown. All of them.
You know,
every single one. I'm so tired of white cowboys.
You know,
sorry. I'm tired of it. It's a lie.
And so I really enjoyed like Assassin's Creed when they went to Egypt, you know, things like that, you know. So like I really want to get more into like different types of like the Tainos or like, you know, Mayan culture, you know, for like video games, because those are characters people can also cosplay. You guys can correct me if you don't agree with it too. I don't look at it as if somebody were to do a Taino or a Mayan culture or a Native American from Mexico. I don't feel it like culturally, you know, disappropriated. I feel like it's embracing something they don't know. And if they learned enough to actually showcase their costume and know their tradition and heritage, I feel like that's a gateway for other people to question, hey, what game are you from? What character are you portraying? I feel like it's a conversation starter as a librarian, because very often we see traditions and things just kind of go wayside. So even if it's something small, I always feel like that if it's done correctly, because I always feel like it has to be done correctly, that it's a gateway for somebody to actually learn more about somebody's culture and to appreciate it fully. Because if they don't know, they just don't know. So
okay, so Taino is like, you know, it's not a monolith. There are people who are of that descent from all different islands and all parts of South America, Central America.
they were wiped out, so nobody really knows exactly who they are as Taino people.
It sucks, yeah. If you look at, I'm from Jamaica. If you look at the Jamaican flag, that's literally like half of our flag is a Taino person. But anyway, what I was going to say was, because people are not a monolith and no one person or organization can speak for Indigenous people or Native Americans or First Nations people, I think that the correct way to embrace a culture, to not appropriate but to appreciate, is not to wear the art of that culture on your body because you do not own it. But if you wanted to make an art fixture, like a painting, a drawing, an embroidery, something that you could show others that you're not necessarily like black facing or brown facing or pretending to be Mayan, I think it's more appropriate to create something that you could show others that is not something that you're putting onto yourself. So I would not want to see somebody running around in a Mayan costume at a convention unless they were actually an Indigenous person, because I've seen really great Indigenous Captain America, so I like, God bless. But if it's a white person, I would rather they create art and then also link to a community, like join a community that's actually from South America and benefit them with your art. Like, have a way to donate money to build a school, something. Like, don't just do something because you want to show off your hard work of Smuts culture on your pasty white self. Why don't you actually like give back to the community that you're using for inspiration? That's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, it makes a good point, because my husband didn't agree. Like I said, I do conventions, and when Book of Life came out, people were Santa Muerte, and they were like, oh, and they weren't Hispanic, but Santa Muerte is a very big thing in Mexico. And so my husband felt a certain way, but I tried to tell him, like, well, there's a bunch of kids, and there were mixed kids, white kids and stuff, and they're asking, where are you from? They never saw the movie. I said, for me, that's like another opportunity to showcase something. You know, I would hope that they would. I'm just, me being as an educator, I'm just hopeful. You know, I want people to learn and appreciate just the differences and the shades and all the cultures, and just the empowerment and the power within people's culture. Like you said, when it comes to Wakanda, like, you wanted that energy, you wanted to go to that place because you wanted that beautiful culture, you know? So like, yeah, I always have this.
And we would not have felt that way if they had a bunch of white people running around in Wakanda, would we?
No.
I think it kind of, there's a way to do it and a way to not do it. And I think it is very character specific. So for example, do I personally care if I see a white kid dressed as T'Challa? No, not really. But do I have a problem with, you know, a white person like mimicking black hair and then putting some of like the facial markings on there? Yes. So I think there's ways of doing it, and there's certain characters that I think are just in general off limits. And I guess my personal thing is, since I cosplay characters outside of my race all the time, but you don't. I think you should avoid things that are culturally significant. So particular garb or cultural iconic things from marginalized groups, that's just off limits. And like even religious deities, I've seen people that have tried to do like I don't know, deities from other cultures, and I'm just like, maybe no.
Like with Penny Dreadful coming out, I know people are gonna do the new set that worked. I don't know if you saw the new Penny Dreadful TV show. I know people are gonna portray that because the costume was amazing. Like somebody trying to recreate that, but like you said, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, because if you don't really understand it, you guys don't really get it. Yeah.
And I think a lot of groups too, depending on where you're from, like if you look at Moana and some of the things that a lot of you know, Native Pacific Islanders have been saying about, you know, her character is like, it's okay to cosplay Moana because
she's the character.
But if you're just like making your own original character in Moanaverse, copying off of like different aesthetics that you see, that's a little bit different. And I think that is where we kind of waltz into problems. So I agree with you, like kind of when you're trying to recreate a character, one, thinking through, you know, are these artifacts that I am copying, are they from, you know, a marginalized community? Is this something that has experienced oppression in some capacity? And then how can I responsibly either remove that from the costume or not do it at all? And I do think, I mean, a lot of people complain, oh, it's like a lot of work. Well, yeah, like oppression sucks. Like that is wild.
Imagine being oppressed. How much work that is.
May I have a crumb of oppression?
Right.
Just
and this is what I get for people at conventions.
The fact that having that argument is the only reason why you're being heard is because they're marginalizing an area of people. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the point. Like they can't do things, and that's why I want to see more representation in video games of different cultures because it gives you an outlet to kind of like cosplay in certain ways and to kind of get those opportunities to kind of feel more inclusive. Because even like you said, it's really hard. We as a Hispanic person, I'm not gonna purposely look Asian to cosplay a character. I'm just gonna cosplay the character. But for some reason, some people have the reverse effect. They'll try to cosplay, and I'm like, that no.
For some reason, you know why.
We know why.
They just don't think about, they're like, oh well, I'm just a character, not the culture. That is most of those things that are included are part of that culture that you're also trying to cosplay. And I also think there is something important about seeing things but knowing you can't also have it. Like there are so many wonderful cultures that we're not part of, and I can just appreciate by seeing it there and not knowing that I can't necessarily take part in that, and that is okay. This is a preschool level concept of you can't have everything.
But so it's in their genes. They gotta Columbus it.
Right.
Gotta manifest destiny. They gotta help themselves. Like, oh my God, it's exhausting.
I think it is crazy that as at POC, we just kind of see a character and we just take them for what they are and then just do that. It's like I've seen the whole TikTok meme where it's like, okay, women conversation, okay, point A, point B, perfect, and then the other person's like, dude, and they finally get to the point that we were trying to make from start one, where it's like, I don't understand why it needs to be this whole rigmarole of why we have to constantly explain that I can't just take this off. No. This isn't something that I can just remove, put it on a hanger and put it up in my closet for the afternoon. Every time I cosplay a character that's not Black, my first initial thought is, what's the internet gonna say? Because I've had very volatile conversations with people getting really upset. And Momo has had this conversation with Todoroki Shoto. Someone's like, Todoroki isn't Black, he's white. And I'm like, his name's not Todd Okie Dokie.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
I still laugh about it because it's hilarious.
It is, but Jesus.
I can't just remove my culture, remove the systematic racism and oppression that as a Black woman, I go through every day.
Just pretend everything is Black. Just pretend everything is white. Just pretend everything is Black.
And it's funny because the people that complain or they do it wrong, they know it deep down their core what they're about to do and step out of the house is wrong. They'll gender bend their costumes perfectly fine. I'm like, but you did that right. You did that right. We could have said something as women if you took our character and gender bendered it. We could have, but we wanted to go there, but we didn't. And then for some reason, you decide to step out your house today and go to a convention. Because there's been several times where I had to break up my friends from not going at people at C2E2. I'm like, don't. It's not worth getting kicked out. You got to do the crown. You got to go walk across that stage later. Not worth it.
I just say do it. Do it. Go show
see what happens. It needs to happen more.
These people get dragged constantly, so it's almost like better.
You know better, and they do it for a buzz. They do it on purpose.
And they always it's always oh, I just wanted to be more accurate. I'm doing it for shock value. If you have to do something for shock value, sounds like you're doing it wrong. Not good.
You can't be more accurate. You don't become Black when you got some freaking makeup on your face. Come on, it's not more accurate.
Did you learn to fly? Did you learn to use magical powers as well? Why is the skin tone is what you're landing on for accuracy?
I always say if it literally comes down to you painting your skin tone for us to tell what character you're cosplaying as, then the costume on your body is not good enough.
It's bad.
For you to take what we have naturally and say, oh, let me have the cherry on top with the face, with the whole no, it doesn't look good. We have undertones apparently people forget about, and then for some reason they think it's okay while we're over here on for just cosplaying and just breathing in general. It's oh, you should just cosplay. I had someone tell me oh yeah, Todoroki's not Black, why can't you cosplay someone like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Are you kidding me? Oh my God.
This dude wrote a whole paragraph in my Instagram comments telling me all of these other Black characters that I should cosplay, and apparently Martin Luther King Jr. was a part of those characters. And I kind of sat there and I was just okay, well, you only even able to name 5 characters. So that in itself is a problem. We don't have that many, but who are you?
This is all a societal issue because at the kids at my old library, I had one kid that didn't like when I would tell him certain things to do. He would be like, why don't you just get back on your computer? You're Asian anyways. Can't you just do something on it? And I'm like, first off,
wow,
do that. You can't just assume somebody you know, like whatever ethnicity they are. But it starts at a really young age, and nobody ever corrects them and tells you these things. Like, ask a question like, hey, are you Asian or Hispanic? I really can't tell. And that's totally fine. Like, you know, educate people in a certain way. But man, the cosplaying group, which gets into my next question real quick, bullying. Do you feel that it's gotten better or worse with the inclusion of minorities and diversity within these fandoms? I mean, for some reason, I feel like people never knew who Miles Morales was, even though he's been around for a long time. Because when Spider-Man came out, everybody looked brand new, you know, and we had so many questions. And I just don't understand why they feel so offended when these characters, you know, become something more, you know. Like, I was really proud when I saw an African-American Doctor Who, even if it was 2 seconds, knowing that in the future there was a reincarnation of a Doctor Who.
Can we just call her black? Because ain't nobody African-American in that show.
Yeah,
it's in Britain. It's in Britain.
Sorry. You know what I mean? Like, but like, you know, like, it just for a second there, and everybody blew up on that. I'm like, y'all need to just breathe. It's okay. These are fictionalized characters, and it's okay to have inclusion because they need to evolve. They need to evolve, and they need different backstories, because everybody's culture has different backstories. But what do you guys feel as far as the bullying? And Momo, if you want to chime in with the diversity thing real quick too, go ahead.
I forgot, what was the diversity thing?
Oh no, but it just do you feel like representations of characters, is it harder now? You know, do you see it more? And also just backing off that, piggybacking off, do you think the inclusion of more minorities has caused more bullying and into the fandoms? I've actually gotten, the only reason I asked this question is because some of the kids did say because of inclusion they were getting bullied, even for things like Black Panther, which had a very positive reaction for a lot of communities.
I kind of want to explain something that people really don't understand. Okay, so the nerd culture is like a little spear inside the bigger spear, which is the entire planet, and there is no wall between nerd culture and everywhere else. So the same white supremacy and the same homophobia and the same transphobia that's outside is in here too. And the reason why it seems like bullying is getting worse because there's more inclusion is because the more equality we try to have, the more prejudice they push down. That happens in every single sphere. I work in gaming and literature and comics and everything. No matter what, you hire 2 women, you're gonna have an increased sexist behavior from all the other coworkers, even though it's just 2 women. If you hire 2 Black people, suddenly there's gonna be nooses hanging in the bathroom because we have to be more racist now because you have a Black person in the door. That's just how it is, and it's very, very frustrating. But I don't want anybody to ever think that we have to stop with being inclusive because of the racism. No, we will increase the thing, and we will scare every single racist person out of the room before we will ever stop making people feel welcome here, because that's what I do. That's it.
Yeah, totally valid. Going off of the point that you just made, it's like, I think it's important to remember, like you said, cosplay is a sphere inside the larger sphere. Like, we are a microcosm, but we are not immune to outside influences. Like, we bring all of that in here. And so I don't think it's necessarily that the more inclusion and more visibility is causing the problems. It's just that cosplay itself is more visible now than it ever has been. And that's going to invite, unfortunately, the bad actors in the world. You know, people are going to be incendiary just because they can be. And that's just unfortunate. Like, that's something that I wish, you know, we could stop. But especially, like you said, you know, everyone else said with children, you have to catch it early, or they're just going to keep going out of control and then grow up into these people that are just like, oh, haha, this racist joke is so funny. Haha, why don't you cosplay MLK? Like, you know, it's just stupid. But like, nobody has ever like given them repercussions for these actions. And when you're on the internet, you feel like you have a safe bubble away from these people, and the shock value and the troll humor, like, to them that's hilarious, but in reality it's very hurtful. So I don't think it's necessarily just that the representation itself is the problem. It's just that as cosplay grows to become a bigger industry than it ever has been, we're gonna see a lot more negativity. And that's where a lot of us come in. Like, we really want to insulate new cosplayers from those negative things. So, you know, on my pages and stuff, wherever I can, if I see anyone acting out, like, I just, no tolerance, like, absolutely not. Like, if you say anything racist, sexist, homophobic, etc., like, it's just an instant delete, ban. I'm not even going to argue with you, because that is not what my cosplay page is about. Like, it's not a battleground. I'm here to celebrate people from all kinds of backgrounds, and like it's not a debate page for you to debate the validity of somebody's existence. So I think having that like hard foot is very important for our community, especially in cosplay groups and conventions. Like there should be no tolerance for this behavior.
100%.
Yeah, that's
and I
a mic drop.
100% agree with that. I think we are getting better with the diversity element in that there are more characters of color out there, and we are, like you mentioned, getting more people of color that are cosplayers out there in the open and that kind of thing. There's lots to unpack about that too, but in general, we're getting more, but we're also really failing at the inclusion part. So while there are more of us, we don't feel it's much more dangerous, right? Because we've got more negative comments coming our directions. You have to actually do the hard part, which is to create both a community and a headspace and a mindset for people to welcome those diverse peoples. And we're just not there because we have the internet and people are again hiding behind like this idea that they're anonymous online. Though a few people have been getting dragged. I really enjoy watching that sometimes. But we really need people in positions of power, like convention runners and people that are, showrunners and those kinds of things, to step up and do the job of creating both a community. So not just bringing on people of color, people from other marginalized backgrounds, just so you can have your numbers up, but also creating a space where they feel welcome and included and have no tolerance for like discrimination of any kind. And I think that's the hard part, and that's we're not there yet, where people are taking that seriously.
And I think too, there's a lot of really great research on bullying, and kind of as y'all were talking about as well, if we're kind of a microcosm of the larger planet with bullying, right? The same people who are making negative comments online are making those comments in person, right? Or having those thoughts at least. And while there's the wall there, those same ideologies, those same thoughts don't just happen because you decided to put yourself in front of a computer screen. And the way that bullying happens, right? The more information a person knows about you, the more ammo they have. And so it feels like, with more representation, there's more bullying. But the reality is, as a lot of you have said too, right, is, people are going to always fight for that space back. People in power are going to fight for those, have the space and occupy the pie that they recently had to have back. And again, the ammo exists. So I think, as you were saying, the hard work isn't just, we want to invite all of the people of color.
That's easy. You can invite people. We're out there. It's not even hard.
Right. We're out there. The people have been here for forever. And the issue is creating those spaces. And that's, making sure that you're marketing towards communities of color, making sure you have communities of color on staff, that your policies exist that, have anti-discrimination, anti-blackface rules. If you're making sure that your convention's accessible, do you have ADA accessible ramps? Like, are you in a place that isn't part of some kind of crazy price bracket to get in? I think all of those things kind of come into really thinking specifically about where your convention and where your community is positioned and what your city is like, and then translating that into what your convention looks like.
And kind of even jumping back on the whole like we're doing the diversity part, but we're not doing like the true inclusion part. I've even noticed too, like since we've been on quarantine a lot more, we haven't been doing a lot. And so not doing a lot means that I have a lot more time on my hands to just kind of scroll through cosplay feeds of pages that share cosplayers, and that's all they do. And you slowly begin to notice, like after the whole 28 Days of Black cosplay happened, and then the whole push for more like, hey, like Black people need more of this representation, and we need to just, push us out there more because we deserve it just as much as anybody else. The comment sections are absolutely vile. And why would you share a cosplayer and not defend the cosplayer after you share them? Like, that's like, congratulations, you get brownie points for sharing a Black person, but then like you literally have let your comment section get to the point where there's like people are just being extremely racist, N-words being flown around like everywhere, and they're not deleting any of them, they're not commenting on any of them, they're just letting it happen. And that's not how like inclusion works. Like, if you're gonna put in the work, you gotta put in the actual work to like be like, hey, we appreciate Black cosplayers, but you can't just throw us to the wolves and expect us to be okay with that. Like, we're not just like, shock value on, oh, there's a Black cosplayer on this page finally for the first time. Here, let me keyboard warrior really quick on how I feel about that. Like, that's not okay. And while I do agree that like these pages and just in general, we need to be like, represented more, the diversity needs to be there, the work also needs to be there to protect the people you share, because it's a two-way street. You can't just share someone and then just let them have it, because we're still people, we still have emotions, I don't want to keep waking up every day seeing people call me names and like slandering me across the internet, all because you gave me like a couple like likes on my page. Like, because I don't want the racists on my Facebook page. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't want them there. Like, because as soon as they see me, they're like, oh, she has more things.
It's
Like,
literally,
I don't want that.
yeah, it's literally the statement of like, it's not enough to be not racist. We have to be anti-racist. Like, we have to keep fighting it, or else it's just going to keep festering, unfortunately. And so, yeah, that's why like I try to, you know, watch my comments as much as I can. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this with your Facebook pages, but my like for some reason Facebook is like pushing the pages now, so I'm getting like a ton of spam comments and likes and things like that, to the point that I had to shut off messaging because I was just getting like 5 BS messages a day, which were like had nothing to do with cosplay. It was just like, hey baby, or whatever. Like, I'm not about that. This is not a dating page.
Yeah.
But like, I'm constantly having to go through and like make sure that like all the cosplayers I've shared in the past like don't have any negative comments. And unfortunately, I have removed a few because those people are not a part of my regular community. And obviously, if anyone has said anything that is just absolutely like zero tolerance, like some of them have posted like a laugh react, I'll delete it. But like some of them have straight up said something incredibly racist, and I'm just like, ban, block, delete, like get out of my community. Like, who are you people? Honestly, like they're all from like, they're not even from the US, which of course like I'm down to have fans all over the world, but it's just like my cosplay page is mostly to interact with people in the community. So like, am I ever going to go to Brazil and interact with that person? Probably not. Yeah. It's totally possible, but like it's just the fact that like most of my community is based in the US, and so that's what I'm trying to build on. And it goes beyond just, you know, being friends with everyone. It's like actively policing like how people are interacting with each other.
Yeah, I will say, like, you do a good job of shutting down stuff like immediately. So if people are looking for model ways to run your social media pages, Momo doesn't play. Like on Twitter, on Facebook, like, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that even like every community has just their keyboard warriors. I'm part of the wrestling community. I'm probably a unicorn, a wrestling fan at the librarian, but there's like 3 other ones that are out there like me that I know of right now. But we have this thing, and I want a lot of other groups, like Momo said, if somebody says something negatively to your page, we don't even engage. We just screenshot, post, and say we need this person to be blocked. And then your warriors, your supporters come toward you, and you just attack that person. You don't give them a voice, you don't give them a platform, you don't engage, you just shut it down from the beginning. Especially with a new group with AEW, they're very inclusive with, you know, minorities, LGBTQ plus community. They're getting attacked by a lot of people because they're a new brand to the arena that is trying to bring down those walls. But of course, the more walls you bring down, you're letting the people see in. You're letting them in that don't like those walls being brought down. So in our community, we do the same thing Momo said. We don't tolerate it. We just go ahead. We don't even engage with it. But like you said, it's unfortunate that they share your guys' work and they leave you out there to get attacked instead of saying, you know, instead of shutting it down, instead of coming to your defense, because they should have your back, and you should feel that inclusiveness, that you have a family in those fandoms. So yeah, I definitely understand that, and I wish, and that's a social media thing, on all levels. And I don't know exactly where it needs to change or how it needs to change, but having kids come into the library and talk about bullying, and it doesn't stop anymore. I mean, like, I think we're all around the same age, kind of around there. We used to get bullied at school, come home, and that would stop for a while. These kids have bullying 24/7, and it's a sad reality. The little bit that we feel attacked, they're getting it all the time from everybody that they think are supposed to be their friends, you know, and then their peers that they try to make, their fans that they try to make online. So it's a very, very weird world we live in, and COVID has not helped. You know, it hasn't helped, and I thought it would, but I wish, hopefully, as we get to be more inclusive and our voices are heard and minorities are being seen, and we're tired. We're tired of everything that's going on, and I hope that as our voices become louder and louder and the screams are heard, that things do start to change. But I have one more question left for you guys. I just want to let you guys know how grateful I am that you guys came out today. I know we went a little long, but you guys had amazing conversations and a great inspiration and great tidbits for everybody that's going to be watching. The last question is 2 parts. What are some things you would like to see change in the cosplay community, which you kind of already touched on? And what is one personal goal that you have in cosplaying for yourself? Because everybody loves goals. We always want to set goals. We want to show these kids that you set little goals and you guys can achieve them. And you guys seem like a great bunch of people that have been in the cosplay industry for a very long time. So yeah, pros and cons?
I'd say, so like I mentioned earlier on, we're really big in the competition ring. So I would love to have more people of color in cosplay contests. And I think that part of what that,
This one over there. She's on my left side. She's on my left side too. So.
So I would love, I guess it's both a goal and kind of, a hope for the community at the same time, but I really want more representation for people of color in cosplay contests. I think that a lot of people don't see it as being something for them. They think that accuracy means you have to mimic, characters outside of your race 100%. And, Tara and I are decorated cosplayers. We've won enough awards, and I don't even think we've ever competed in a costume where we were our same race. Oh, that's not true. Adorable on it. But most of our characters are not Black. So we still win prizes regardless of what race we have. And I think that, having that be a thing that people are aware of, and then also having conventions and cosplay contests have rules in place to where it's a no blackface zone, that they have negotiated that what accuracy means. And we don't mean, and I think what we talk about for accuracy is that doesn't mean you have to completely create the character. You just have to make choices that make sense. So if you roll up, for example, a Sailor Moon and you have like a natural hairstyle as Sailor Moon, that's fine. You can do that. You just have to make, aesthetic choices that make sense for the character. Like maybe don't show up in a parka. Yeah. But having like a natural hairstyle Sailor Moon, a lot of that fan art has been really popular lately. Those kinds of things I think there's room for in cosplay contests to still win top prizes for that. So I really want cosplayers to understand that it's not just for, the people that look like the characters, and half of them don't anyway. So I really want to make the community more inclusive for contestants of color.
I think I would say I really want a better community piece of, I want to say better active bystanders in our communities. I think that's a really big piece of, not everything's going to be a policy violation that gets thrown out of the convention, especially if they don't happen to have a blackface policy. Yeah. So I'd like to see more people, being comfortable to stand up for injustice in those spaces and kind of work through what those barriers might be for them of like, oh, I have social anxiety. Like, how do I still be a good advocate for people having social anxiety or for, not wanting to, I don't like confrontation. How do I work through that without being a vigilante? Those are 2 totally different things that I think is important to mention. Listening to your community and trying to be a better advocate. I think the more of us who can think, how can I help other people into the community and how can I help this community be more inclusive, makes it better for everyone. High tides raise all ships, as it were. So I'd like to see more of that, just of everyone kind of looking out for each other and thinking through some of those social justice issues we all talked about today inside the convention space, and not just, when it comes time to vote, like we think about all the time.
And even, cons, who knows when they're going to happen, but online too. Just you're online, it's easier to, I think, engage online in a lot of ways because you're not in the moment. You have time to think about your response. So seeing some of that bystander action happen in the virtual sphere as well, I think is really important.
Yeah. And then I just want to build something on time. The end.
Yeah. Build something on time.
Momo?
I definitely, coming from a competitive background as well, I think what Pros and Cons Cosplay is pretty on point with what I would love to achieve and see. Even going a step further, and I know they're very much about this too, is just making some of the contests more accessible. Because I know being in competitions, we've definitely experienced this contest that lasts 6 hours of your Saturday, the busiest day, the most fun day of the convention usually. And it's like, man, I spent half the day at this contest when really there's no reason to. So finding ways to make it more accessible for people that have other things to do, like they have panels to run, or they have things to see, friends to hang out with, or they might have certain limitations with how long they can, be standing around or waiting in line or wearing a certain costume. And so I think that's a very important thing, is trying to make it more accessible, and as well as like they said, encourage more people of more diverse backgrounds to come and join us, because the contests are not about accuracy of how you look. It's about the quality of the costume that you're bringing to judges. Like we can't judge you on something that you didn't make. So you didn't make your skin tone, you didn't make your natural hair, you didn't make yourself wear glasses, like you didn't make any of those. So we can't judge you on that. We only judge on the craft that you bring us. And I think that's so important for young cosplayers to remember if they're ever interested in joining a contest. And I will say, unfortunately, there are some judges out there that still are old-fashioned and don't necessarily think the way we do. And so that's another project, is how do we get more understanding of diversity with our judges? And I think a lot of that goes back to hiring people and including them in our policy making, not just having them as a talking head, but that can go as far as the contest runners, the con chairs, the con staff. Having a lot of awareness of diversity in our spaces is going to eventually increase the quality of our inclusion, as to not just be like, hey, there would be more POC cosplayers if they just signed up for the contest. Like, it's not enough to just be like, where are they? We have to go out and find them and encourage them and make sure it's a welcome space. And as far as personal goals go, right quick, I did mention earlier about offering the patterns in more sizes. So that's kind of what I've been working on rather this summer. And as far as just my personal for me cosplay goals, I'm gonna master armor. I made one foam prop earlier this year, technically two, because it was my dual blades for Riku. So that was a fun experiment. They look awful in person, but
you'll get there. It happens.
So you gotta start somewhere though, and I think that's the other important thing that I encourage all cosplayers. It's just like, you have to start somewhere. If it looks like crap, that's okay. You still made it. You did something, and that's more experience than you had before when you didn't make that piece of crap foam armor or whatever. Like, it's okay. Whoops. Am I still here?
Very good.
Sorry. My phone is on low battery.
It's
like, I'm dying.
Oh no.
But honestly, you just have to go out and try it. Like, even if you don't get it right the first time, that's okay. You learned something.
Akakioga?
I think the big thing for me, since I don't do competitions, I do agree with all of that, because there definitely have been a lot of times where I didn't feel like I belonged there because I wasn't white, you know, and a lot of characters I do cosplay aren't black. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to put in my World of Warcraft cosplay because there aren't many black people in World of Warcraft. So I just said, nope, I'm not doing it. But I want to eventually. I think the big thing for me, since I do a lot of guesting at conventions, I want to see conventions basically not just have one black person and say that this is their diversity, you know, because I don't want to, like, as much as I love, you know, going to conventions and being like, you know, the person that all the POC kids and people can come to and be like, oh my gosh, you look like me. I also don't want the pressure of it only being me, because I don't speak for the entire, you know, just even in general, just the black cosplay community. I want to see more black cosplayers being recognized both online and at conventions, because there's so many people that have like less than like 10,000 likes that are phenomenal at what they do, but they will never get the recognition they deserve simply because, one, algorithms suck, and then two, they're never going to be able to get that opportunity because so many industries look at your numbers and they base your value on your numbers. And if that's one thing I could change, I would, in a heartbeat, I would change that, because your worth shouldn't be tied to like how many followers you have. And you're like, the things that you bring to the cosplay world shouldn't just be based on that. Like, if you are a great person, even if your craftsmanship's not that great, if you're just a great person and you have really good vibes and you like get along with everyone, hey, that's all I'm looking for, you know? Like, I don't care if you have like 20,000 followers and your attitude, like, you're just not a good person. Like, I don't care at the end of the day. But I truly want to see more POC and black cosplayers getting the recognition they deserve, because too long even when we talked at the beginning of the panel where we mentioned how there weren't very many black cosplayers starting out when we first started. And I want to like amplify that for the new generation and basically be like, there's no rock that they can turn that they won't see a black cosplayer. Like, I want that to be the norm in 2020 going forward, because like there shouldn't be like this whole, well, where are the Black cosplayers? I didn't know they existed. And then every time 28 Days of Black Cosplay rolls around, suddenly they're like, oh, they've been here the whole time. And it's like,
disappear every February. Like
yeah, we just disappear in March. Like, we just go away. We just, like, for some reason, we just don't exist after that.
Melon in March now.
Melon in March, right? Let's go. We keep going. We get the shortest month of the year, by the way. I just want to point that out, but I digress. Truly, yeah, I just want to see more people just like being amplified, being supported in this community. And like that inclusion, especially the inclusion, is so important. Because you can just shove a ton of Black cosplayers into the world of cosplay, but then as soon as you like leave them, what are they gonna do? You know, you kind of have to work alongside with them to make sure that they're getting the support they need, but also not being like ridiculed and attacked by all the people that don't think that we're worth being seen. And then of course, just going back to the guesting thing, I want more Black and POC cosplay guests at conventions, because too many times I go to conventions that have the most diverse group of people, and there maybe one like ambiguous person there who is like ends up being the representative for like the entire POC community, and I'm just like, guys, like I could count like 20 Black people that just went that way. What are you doing? Like, do you not like see who's coming to your convention? Are you that like blind to the new people who are coming to your con? Like, it's so important. So I've had so many kids and so many just cosplayers come up to me and be like, you're the first Black cosplayer I've seen, or you're the first Black cosplayer that I've ever seen at this convention. Like that, we shouldn't be the first. We should be the 20th, the 30th. Like, we need more. And I want to see more melanin in my life, because like I still to this day am encouraged by seeing the new and older cosplayers doing what they love, because like that's what motivates me to keep going in this community. And then I guess a goal for me is to not let quarantine kick my ass, because I've literally had a cosplay sitting on my mannequin since April and it's not done, and it's Isabelle from Animal Crossing. It is the easiest dress. It's her like white and green checkered dress that she has, and I have been working on that for like I guess 4 months now, and it's still not done. And I'm like, I hate that quarantine has sucked a lot of the creativity out of me. So I think a goal for me right now is to try and bring that back, and then just, you know, also take care of myself. But I also still want to like incorporate cosplay into that, because cosplay is also my self-care, and so is Animal Crossing. So there you go.
Okay, want to close us out?
All right, so earlier you had made reference to minorities, and then you said LGBT people, and then you kind of stopped, and I was like, I think that because of what you said with minorities constantly having to fight to scream and to be heard over the crowd, I don't say minorities when I'm talking about people who have been discriminated against on the basis of race or gender or religion or ability. I say marginalized people, because that's literally what it's like when you're working in an industry that's so visible as like cosplay or gaming or literature. They are pushing you to the margins. They want to like, you're here, but we're not going to give you as much voice as everyone else. We're not going to give you as much text as everyone else. We're not going to let you basically drive the narrative. You're here, but you're in the margin. So we're basically trying to push ourselves out of the margin to be able to control the narrative, to be able to destroy the default human experience, which is a white, cis, able-bodied man. And that's something that I've been fighting against like practically my whole adult life in everything that I do. And so what I want to see change is to not have that be the default experience anymore in any of the mediums that we create in. A good example is Mass Effect, favorite video game of all time. And you've been able to be a woman for the entire trilogy, and yet in all of the game art, it was always a man. In all of the trailers, it was a man. Until the third one, finally, they like, oh, who's that girl? Oh, she's been there the whole time? So I really want to be able to have that perspective of having not just one version of what a nerd is or what like a cosplayer is. I want them to be able to see so much more diversity and inclusion. I don't want it to only be like, well, we'll have a Black girl, but she'll be like Lisa Bonet or something. She'll be like extremely light skinned, and and the colorism is just, it runs rampant. It's horrifying. I really want there to be able to be a space for everyone, like we've been saying this entire panel. And I'm just really happy to be able to talk to all of you guys, because it's been such a great experience getting to hear everyone's point of view and perspective, because I don't compete either. I've competed, I think, twice. Once was by accident, because I thought I was in line to get the t-shirt and it was a costume contest.
That's kind of the best thing I've ever heard, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's awesome.
And the other one was one of those like, oh, you're in a bar and there's somebody walking around taking pictures of each person and you thought it was just like whatever, but it was a contest. So at the end of the night, they're like, and the winner is Commander Shepard. And I'm like, what?
Hello?
Hello? Like literally, like, yeah. So I don't really compete, but what's funny is that even though I've competed like maybe 2 or 3 times, I won twice and I think I got second place once. People now come to me to ask me to judge, and then they ask me for a list of all of my masquerade appearances, and I'm like, I've never been in a masquerade. And then they're like,
Same.
So I think, right? It's like
I have no masquerade experience, but
you're acknowledging that
this
person's work is good enough to judge a masquerade, but because they have never done one, like as a competitor, you suddenly don't want them anymore. So it's like, what is this weird perspective that con runners have on people, like on their skill? Like you can watch somebody make a whole costume on stream, you can watch them put tutorials online, and you see that they're good enough. But I guess the idea that you have to have had a certain experience to be good enough to be a guest, and I'm like, that's kind of gatekeepery. It is, because you have people who have really great costumes, like you said, but because they haven't done it masquerades, again, you got to pay for your badge. You're not a guest. You're paying to compete. You're spending an entire day there. It's not accessible because if you have POTS and you can't physically stand that long or wait that long or be in that costume that long, it's impossible to compete. I know so many great cosplayers who have a disability that can't compete because you have to be in your costume for 8 hours.
Yeah.
I think just to quickly to add to that piece, because I agree there is definitely a gatekeeping problem. I think when it comes to judging contests, I think there's 2 different types of brackets for guests. I think you could totally be a guest and maybe you don't make your costumes, or maybe you do and you're just not really about contest judging. It's a long day. But I think too, when you're in a costume setting, I think I really value, especially when it comes to like being inclusive, like we have people who know what they're doing and aren't just like, oh, this person looks pretty, so we want that person to judge. And a good way of doing that, I think, is to look at not necessarily like the reward count, but like what do you do, right? Like, do you know how to use a sewing machine? Like, have you worked with foam before? And getting a wide variety of types of people to judge. And so that's why our general mantra, is, master level folks should be judging, because they have an idea of like what the material is that you're looking at. That way they aren't defaulting, this person's body.
There's truly nothing worse than rolling up in a contest and being a contestant and knowing your judge has no idea what they're talking about. Like, you're just like, oh,
God. Then that's when they default to bias. But I hear you what you're saying too. Like there is certainly, if there aren't people who color who compete, then there aren't people of color getting those awards. And so then it's looking at people who are in industry or people who, make, commissions or get that master level experience
without being. And I do think there are 2 different animals. I think contest creation and then costume building. Sometimes there's 2 different kind of techniques to that. But I do feel like you can have people that maybe don't compete as often but are good crafters come in. So like Kamui Cosplay, for example, or who am I thinking of? Papa Bear doesn't compete as much anymore, but he's an amazing crafter, but he doesn't compete as much. But he does good work, so we don't have an issue with judging, because we know he does like craft.
And additionally, you can supplement that by having your other people not judge the cosplay. You are kind of locked in a hole for 8 hours judging, all the people who come through. And a lot of benefit is from being on the con floor, having people come see you, have people come meet you, and so
because you're locked away. So it's nice to have I don't think that every cosplay guest has to be a judge, and I don't think that's fair. Like if you don't craft, then it's really unfair to make that judge sit there and try and like, whoa, what kind of hand is that? I don't. What's the CVA foam?
What kind of
paint on it? Like it's paint. So just bring in guests that are good at what they do and bring them into that skill set. Not everyone's a contest judge. Not everyone's like a social media personality and can do that. So bring in guests that make sense.
I honestly think just like having like the list of awards that they've done just makes it easier for them to not have to research if this person's good or not. Mm-hmm. And it just like comes back to just being lazy and not being attentive on like, hey, what does this person bring to this convention outside of their number count, how many awards they've won, like what do they do for the community, like things like that. Like I feel like as a guest you shouldn't just be like in a box of things that you just do. You should also look outside of that and be like, what do other people think about this person? Like do they are they like a good spokesperson? Like do they are they outspoken? Do they do panels? Are they a good craftsman but they don't have awards? Like there's so many things that I feel like more con runners need to be aware of, instead of just being like, oh, okay, the resume says that has like they have 20 awards. Okay, they're a good person. But what if they're not an actual good person? And like you can't judge a person's character based on awards they've won.
No, I agree with you entirely. And y'all want to laugh? So I'm not going to name names, but this con runner went to a panel I did, went to a workshop I did, went to my booth at a convention, and then still asked me that question afterwards. So it's like, brother, you already knew all the answers to this. Like, you knew I could do the job, but it's fine. So personal goals you had mentioned before on the second part of the question. Yeah, no worries. I think what you said earlier, the fact that we are in a pandemic, I'm immunocompromised and I haven't been outside my house since March. I haven't touched a human person since March. And the fact that, you know, people who look like me are getting killed in the street for nothing. And it's just, there's a lot of really depressing things happening right now. So depression's been kicking my butt. I haven't been able to work on anything. My sewing machine is still in the suitcase from PAX East. And so I would really like to get back into crafting, but it's like, it's hard to feel joy when you are depressed, and it's hard to make yourself do things. And it's really, really tough. So I would like to be able to get out of the depression hole of like isolationism and get back into like being able to make things, because this was my year, man. I know everybody says that, but this is my year. Yeah, I was gonna make so many costumes this year. Like I'd already finished one Star Wars costumes. I did Cara Dune from The Mandalorian, and I did The Witcher this year. I was Geralt, that was fun. I did a new Thor costume this year. I was gonna do at least 3 more costumes from Star Wars, and I have parts of them, and it's like, I have everything I need. I have all the tools. I just don't have the headspace to make things. And I feel like if I can just push through the sads to get to the good stuff, it'll be fun. Oh, but it's hard because you kind of like lose touch of your community. Because I go to like 20 cons a year. I would have seen people like every other weekend, and I would have been, I know I'm crazy. And I constantly, I'm making things to sell, making things to donate, making things to wear. But without the schedule in my head of, okay, you have to be on a plane at this time to get to this convention, so you got to finish sewing this on Thursday at 2 p.m. Without that pushing me, I don't have anything keeping me going. I don't have anything motivating me to keep on schedule. And it's like you have to change your motivation from like the clock to question mark. Like what keeps you going? Like what drives you? Like what makes you want to do things and to get your life back together? I think we're all kind of like trying to search for something right now, and I have not found mine yet, but I will. Y'all will find out when I do.
Libraries. No, but seriously, libraries, I did a panel C2E2 for libraries and doing Comic-Cons like on a shoestring budget, how to get it to your director to want to do a Comic-Con, because I feel like kids sometimes just need what you said, representation. They need to see people come in and be like, you can create this. Like when Monica, I met Monica years ago, I had her come in and do just make a small little shield, you know, like, and just had the kids came in, made a craft, and that's what they did. They made Batman mask, you know, but it was hands-on, and they learned how to do a little cosplaying type thing, you know. Not to say you guys can find motivation in this, but yeah, the internet, the kids libraries need this content. So you don't understand how appreciative I am to have you guys here today to do this, because having you guys here also is one thing. They're getting to see people that look like them in my community, and letting them know that they can go out there and achieve these things. They can go out there and get those awards. They can create these cosplay. I'm gonna link all your guys' bios to our page. So everybody that's watching this, you can find all the amazing creations that they've done and put all their work into. Yeah, they did these things. You're going to be able to see the things that they did with their hands. And it's trial and error. Don't be scared. Before we were younger, we didn't have YouTube and the internet and Twitch live stream and, you know, Snapchat and all these, you know, tutorials. You guys have everything in your hands. And if you have any questions, the library's here to help you. I can help you. I always shoot them a question. If you're like, how did you do this piece for your Mad Hatter or your Alice in Wonderland costume? How did you do something, your armor that you did, you know, for Monster Hunter? Because a lot of kids love Monster Hunter on my library. Same thing. I know I'm grateful for you guys, but just to let you guys know, if you guys need any type of motivation, the libraries in your communities can definitely need the help as far as content, especially during this time. It's really hard. Our budgets have been strapped, just cut and things like that. So I'm very grateful that I got to meet you guys. I'm grateful that hopefully we get to see, I'll see you guys at the C2E2 because I will definitely be there, and I'd love to meet you guys in person, or New York Comic Con or Emerald. I've gone to those too. But yeah, check things out, everybody. They're all the people you see here will have all their work on our MAPLD's FanFest website. This will be on our YouTube page and then our Facebook page. If you have any questions, you guys can hopefully just come in. I'll have you guys come in that day if you want to make a little comment underneath our video to say, hi, this is me in this video. If you guys have any questions, to comment here. But we have a lot of kids that are going to be watching this. Yeah, go out there and create. Be creative. Don't ever think you can't. I don't know if there's anything else I can possibly say besides that. Just do it. You guys can do it. You guys have the motivation. We believe in you. We want to see you guys at a con, hopefully very soon. But until then, everybody stay safe, stay healthy. We hope to see you guys in the library very soon, at a convention, any type of event. Just spread positivity and never doubt yourself. You guys can create and do amazing things. So until then, we will see you guys next time. Thank you guys for coming out.